Hey, y'all, welcome to Cover. I'm Horse Thief, and my co-host is Yuckmouth, and we are here to create new Storybook Brawl stories with you. As always, Good Luck Games features an excellent batch of charities, and we will continue to promote that batch of charities. Yuck. What are we doing today?
We've got a great one today, Horse Thief. We are joined by none other than Keith OTR, who may also be known as Exclamation Keith or the Book Mage Enthusiast, in-game known as Lucid Dream. Many names, a person that happens to be everywhere all the time. I don't know how you do it, but speaking of that, thank you for finding time in your day to join us today.
Yeah, as much as I'm friends with both of you two, I was like super honored to be asked onto this show. Like, obviously, anytime somebody says your story is interesting enough to want to like share with a wide audience, like it's a compliment. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, you're a really important part of the community. You're very active, and community in Storybook Brawl. It's a big part of it. It's a big part of what really makes me love the game. I mean, I love the game itself, but the community just kind of makes me love it even more. So thanks for being a part of that. And I have to say, for anybody that doesn't already know, I talk about this sometimes, but Keith, actually, you introduced me to Storybook Brawl. And a question I often like to ask is, how did you discover Storybook Brawl?
So a little known fact, I actually invented Storybook Brawl. So Matt Nass was telling me one day he was looking for a new game to make. And so I kind of gave him this idea. No. So basically, I was aware of it like a year before it even came out, and I was trying to get into the alpha because it was, I mean, like every auto battler is going to have its own flaws. For me, Hearthstone Battlegrounds, like I was getting a bit sick of it even like maybe a year on before finding Storybook Brawl, but you know, wasn't finding anything else, and so I was seeing this other game. I was like, wow, this looks sweet. And then I didn't get into the alpha. I think I got into like a pre-beta, or I just was in really early. And as soon as I started playing it, I was hooked. Like, I think something about the micromanaging of like the supports and like the units, like just that basic principle, like adding that into the battler game and then having the treasures. And then it was just like, it just felt like somebody looked at Hearthstone Battlegrounds and was like, okay, like this is cool and all, but like I can do better. Right. So then I start playing this game, and yeah, I don't know. Like I think there's been iterations of the game. Like there's been different stages, and like anybody who knows my playstyle back when it really first began, all I did was force Dora, right? Adventure. Like every game, just hard roll for adventure, find supports. Pup was the OP hero, just like do that. And then like the game changes, and then it's like, oh man, like I don't want to play this game anymore. This game sucks. But then like I discover Arthur, and like I start doing this mid-range scaling stuff and trying to build like shoulder fairy comps with Arthur and White, and like just so basically I settled into a place now where, you know, like Book Mage is like my favorite comp, and it's like a mid-range scaling type comp. It's not like the best comp ever, but it is kind of like what I enjoy doing in the game the most. So I think every patch there's been certain things about the game that I like more or less, but whatever those things are, they always keep me coming back to the game. Right? So there's always something there for me. And I could go on forever. So what's up, Horse?
Well, I gotta ask, is that kind of a theme going back to like the BG's days, where you kind of find something mid-game scaling or mid-game growing and kind of latch onto that and go from there?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, even if you look at like, I mean, I'm not sure the audience here, what people are familiar with game-wise, right? Where there's like Magic the Gathering, or, you know, like you said, Hearthstone Battlegrounds. So I'll try not to name drop too many units, but like there was one unit called Deflectobot, and I would say it's kind of like Court Wizard, not exactly, but it was this unit that like got value from your other units attacking into it. And then you could find ways to force your opponent's units to attack into your, anyways, long story short, scale up a big Court Wizard, right? Like that was like the thing that I loved doing in Hearthstone Battlegrounds. So that was like Deflectobot and Arm of the Empire, for people who are familiar with Battlegrounds. But then even if you look at like the way I like play Magic, like I love building like these like kind of like small scaling engines that like, it's like a Rube Goldberg machine, right? Like I enjoy making a hypothesis about something, saying like, I think if I put this and this and this together, and I arrive at this point at the end of the game, I will achieve this result. And then it becomes like an experiment to like go through and like do it. Now, unfortunately, even when the experiment doesn't always work out, that doesn't always stop me from continuing to force that strategy, right? Like, I'm sorry to say it, like book mages are not like a top tier comp right now. but that doesn't stop me from playing them because I love the play style.
It strikes me almost
Alright,
as kind of
so
like some
Keith.
Johnny energy.
Yeah, definitely some Johnny energy.
So Keith, you're talking about really falling in love with specific strategies and comps. Apparently, when you do that, you're also sometimes willing to write a guide. You've written a couple of guides.
That's true.
How has that come about? And like, let people know what guides you've written and direct them to reading those guides because they are very good.
Yeah, I mean, the first one that I wrote was a horseman guide on the Headless Horseman, and it kind of came about because. Well, I'm in chat and I love memeing, so I was always memeing about the Horseman, but then like people didn't realize that like Horseman was actually a playable hero, or at least in my opinion was. And like I was always having to like go on these like long tangents and like back up like why Horseman's playable and like what you should do to use him and do all this kind of stuff. And I just was like, so I started typing like a Word document because I was like tired of having to type it all out, and then I would just like send that to people or whatever.
People didn't
then,
love
like, the Word
Horseman instantly?
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird, right? But then I would like I had this like Word document, and then it turned into like a Google Doc because that was easier to share. And then I guess at some point I was like, oh, this should be published. I was like, oh, this would be sweet. Like I need to get a Horseman guide on the SPB main site, right? Like that would be awesome. So I put some pictures with it, sent it off to Parney, and he made that happen. And it was like, it was short and sweet, right? It was more of like a meme guide, I would say.
Well, the best
like,
part of it was that memery, the fact that your sense of humor translates into the, I mean, and how is it not going to? Your sense of humor is going to translate into everything you do, of course.
Well, because a lot of the way that I make my points is by like making jokes, right? Or like saying outrageous things to get people's attention. So like at the end of the day, and I truly believe this, like the key to Headless Horseman is like cast and kidnap on turn one, right? As it talks about in the guide, like there's a lot of problems that casting it on turn one solves. And the biggest downside to casting it on turn one is like, oh my God, I didn't get a kidnap, right? And people like start taking it personally and they're like, oh, I'm a bad player. Like, I don't know. People just like struggle with that. But if you can accept that like casting the turn one kidnap gets kidnaps out of your hands, it gets your tempo going, gets your econ going, like it solves all these issues with the hero, right? And so that was the idea for the guide, right? I need to convince people to cast kidnap on turn one. And that's all I really accomplished with the guide. Like I made some jokes, I like talked about a few different things in there, but there isn't a lot to the hero, right? Because like as people say, like he doesn't really have a hero power. His hero power is being strong and casting spells early. So it naturally builds into book mages, right? And then we start to find out like, okay, well there's a reason that I really like Horseman is because it like really works well with book mages, and you know, it's all kind of built into that. So Horseman just fits my play style and continuing to show for the game, right? It is cool how different heroes can really their tier list position can really switch, you know, depending on what kind of a player you are.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring that up. As you already know, Keith, we have conversations, it seems like on a regular basis, about this hero, Horseman. You haven't convinced me yet. I don't think it's bad, but I've had a couple of those experiences. As you're talking about, you need to play Kidnap turn one to get him out of your hand, and you hope to get early game value. There was one game in particular, one of the first times I ever played the hero, where I ended up playing other spells every turn and just literally couldn't get the kidnaps out of my hand. I think it's affected me to this day, that one lobby. I probably should move past that. I don't know that I can. So I value your opinion. The guide is wonderful. I try to be open-minded, but to this day, I can't bring myself to love the hero.
I feel like there's a scale here.
Yeah.
There's a scale of Keith on the one side just absolutely loving it, and then Yuck on the other side just like really wanted to love it at some, like they really wanted to give an effort to loving it but just can't love it. And then I started in some maybe just a step ahead of Yuck where it was still like mostly below average on it, didn't really and then your guide has convinced me to play a little more, and I'm a little more neutral now. I think it works out really well sometimes, and I think sometimes it backfires really hard, and it's probably for me slightly below average or at average. One of those heroes that I'm not sad to see, but I'm not excited. I want to reach your enthusiasm, is what I'm saying.
I have to point this out as well. Part of this, I think, is I really like disagreeing with Keith, and it's not because I don't respect Keith or value Keith's opinion. I absolutely do. There's just something about disagreeing with Keith that feels right.
Oh, yeah.
Now, not every topic, but if I can find something that we don't really fully agree on, we might as well go total opposites, you know? It leads to some good conversations at the very least.
It's just fun. Like that's amazing about the internet, to go on a soapbox for a second. Like I love Twitch and just like how I feel like you can just you can be as much yourself as you want, or you can just completely screw around and just like say offensive things, and you can like, it's just this place where like, I don't know, it's people can choose, like it's literally like what I said, right? So like me and Yuck in real life, like we haven't even met in person, but I know we get along great, right? And I know we'd have these like joking disagreements and that kind of stuff. It just happens when we show up on the internet, it's like they become personified or they become magnified, sorry, because it's like, that's the bet, right? I mean, we're on the internet, we're gonna disagree. That's how it's done.
Yeah, speaking of being on the internet, you seem to be everywhere all the time on Twitch. I don't know if you know the answer to what I'm gonna ask, but I'm curious, do you know how many different channels on Twitch are you a moderator? And how many channels on Twitch is there an exclamation Keith command? Do you know the answers to these?
I don't. That would be a good trivia question.
It'd probably be a shorter list to say how many channels are you not, if we had to.
I think I'm going to say 20 and 10. That sounds low, though. Maybe moderator on 30, Keith commands in 20. I'm not even exaggerating. I think that's probably what it is.
That's pretty crazy. And yeah, the community is great, and you run into a lot of the same faces in different channels. So you're right, you really get to know people, even just through Twitch chat, and it's so much fun to kind of just be involved in the community as a streamer, obviously, but I think even just as a viewer, this is a great community just to be involved. And you're obviously a name that I think everyone would recognize, and so we're really happy to be able to talk to you today.
Yeah, no, and I've had my own experiences, right, with like, I've done the Twitch chatter thing, I've tried the streaming thing for a while, and now I've like taken a bit more of like a backseat chatting role, but it's, I think anybody that knows me, I am not below shameless promotion. I love to promote myself, and I enjoy being mod in channels, so when I see a channel that I'm not modded, that I'm in, I usually just ask, I'll just go, hey, could I have mod? You know, and sometimes they say yes, sometimes they say no, but it doesn't really matter to me at the end of the day, right? And some people will say, well, but like, you're barely here, why would I make you mod? I'm like, yeah, well, good point. Like, or they'll say, sure, I'll make you mod. Like, you know, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day, but just the whole, like, it started as a joke, like I'm mod everywhere, Keith commands everywhere, whatever, but like,
that's one of the more,
yeah, go ahead.
It's one of the more intriguing aspects of you is the how you are in Twitch chat is kind of that we were talking about the persona in chat and how you show up in an online space, and you kind of have become the exclamation point Keith. Like a lot of people see you show up and they think exclamation point Keith because it's become so prolific or ubiquitous. I don't know what you want to say, but
yeah,
despite that, the fact that you end up modding in so many different channels, this persona of Keith is a bit ephemeral. You shift depending on what space you're in. Like this Keith persona can be an absolute meme lord, or it can be a very earnest and honest guy. You know, like you operate, and it's kind of interesting thinking about that with you know. And Yuck and I, of course, are going to share all sorts of stuff about personal life because we stream for all these hours all the time, and you did too while you were streaming. And right now, we know that a lot of your streaming has taken a backseat, largely in part due to your studies. Right, real life Keith is an academic.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's in classes, we can say that much. But I mean, I think what I don't know what point is most worth hitting on. Do you think the audience is more interested in hearing about like Keith IRL, or hearing about Keith as he shifts through the Twitch sphere? Both,
right? They go together. You can't really, I mean, they're separate, but you can't really separate the two.
That's true. I mean, I guess I'll start with the one that I know best how to discuss or talk about, is just like this idea of like how I'm such a different person in different spaces. And I honestly think it comes back to respect, right? Like anybody that's willing to put themselves out there and stream on Twitch, especially somebody that I know personally, like I have a lot of respect for that. And I have a lot of respect for like the way that they want to run their channel, right? So I will start with the absolute like Kleck's channel, right? So when I'm in Kleck's channel, like I'm not even that vulgar in real life, right? I'm just completely beyond myself. Me and Kleck constantly bashing on each other, but like, if you think me and Yuck bash on each other, like that's not even close. So, but that's like me and Kleck's relationship, right? And so people get confused. A lot of times, like they'll come into the channel and they'll see this and they'll be like, either, holy crap, like stop picking on Keith streamer, like that's so rude, or like, oh my god, like leave Kleck alone, like why are you saying that to him? But it's like, that's just like me and Kleck's relationship. And over time, I've learned with interacting with Kleck, like that's just how it is. And that is where like the Keith command started, right? That was like Kleck getting so annoyed with me, rightly or, you know, exaggeratedly or whatever, just being like, man, I just like need a command to like tell Keith to shut up, right? So it was like exclamation point Keith, like shut up Keith or whatever.
How long ago was
and
that?
Then, I have a couple of years now.
The origin of the
maybe
exclamation point Keith in Kleck's, really?
It was very early on. I could find out how long I've been on that channel for, but say it was a couple years, couple months in, that was just the thing that happened, right? And so, but simultaneously, me and Kleck would be like messaging on Discord and like having like deep conversations and like it's like it was this complete opposite thing, right? The Keith Kleck, like it's the Keith Kleck show on his channel, but then it's like in person or in like Discord, like we're having like friendly conversations, like it's separate. And then somehow me and Kleck, like, I don't know how it's happened, but it started showing up in other channels. And then like the more that it showed up in other channels, the more that we just embraced it. But I mean, to be honest, at first I didn't know how to handle it, right? Like I didn't know how to handle half the Storybook Brawl community wherever I went telling me to shut up, right? It was like, because everybody, to them it was a joke, and like in some ways it was a joke to me, but every once in a while like it would go too far and I would like flip out a bit and like I didn't know how to handle it. But I've just like gotten used to it over time. And like the Keith commands have kind of like shifted, like some of them are just like really strange, like Lil Nanko's is like a reference to Toby Keith, the country artist, like the Google reference.
I mean, if we had a tier list of Keith commands, the Yuck command's got to be up there.
The Yuck one is great. I've thought about changing it many times, but you know, because for anybody that doesn't know, it's something about like somebody one day like legitimately asked her like, Keith, are you a bot? Like, do you ever sleep? Like, I wake up and like you're there in chat, and then like I go to bed and like you're streaming, and like I wake up and the cycle starts again. Like, what is going on here? It was such an earnest question, but it really did capture the Keith experience, right? The mythos of like this person who's always on Twitch, which like to the most. Yeah, go ahead,
Keith. To be fair, I've never heard you respond to that with a no. As many times as I've seen that pop up in chat, not one time have you said, no, I'm not a bot. So I'm still not sure. I don't know if you're willing to answer this one, but...
no comment.
Have you successfully completed a CAPTCHA lately, Keith?
No, my brother does those for me.
Well, that doesn't help us at all.
But to go the other side, right? Like Yuck's channel, I've been there longer than I've been in Kleck's channel. And it's a completely different vibe there, right? And like at first, I don't remember exactly. I'm sure I tested some boundaries. And the way that Yuck responds to things, what he laughs at, what he doesn't even acknowledge, whatever those said or unsaid statements are, over time, like I start to learn, like, okay, like what is the expectation in this channel? And so whatever that expectation is, I go one level beyond it, right? I find whatever that is, and I just push on it, but I don't go over it. And that's always my goal. Like, I want to be like making people laugh. I want to be getting attention. I want to be like doing all that kind of stuff, but like, I'm not going to do it at the expense of the streamer, and I'm definitely not going to do it at the expense of like a friendship. And then like Horse is somewhere in the middle, right? Like Horse is even more of an enigma trying to mod for that channel because it's not always clear like what's really allowed and what's not allowed. So with Horse, I'll just kind of do something. I'll like ban somebody, and he like turns out that's not a big deal for the most part. But then like sometimes it is, right? So I think I really look at the way that I interact in different streams as just like based off the relationship with the streamer. And so I try to honor that. And to the extent that you can always do the right thing in a friendship, I do that. Do I offend people? Sure. Do I piss people off once in a while? Sure. Do I make Yuck pull the rest of his hair out sometimes? Like, sure. But like, it's I don't know. That's how I look at it anyways. That whole idea.
I think you do a great job
Yeah.
of managing and understanding different personalities. I think it's definitely a strong suit of yours. And that ties back to Keith as a person. And speaking of Keith as a person and how these things go together, I happen to know, and maybe I'm going to put you on the spot just a little bit here, but I happen to know
no
you're a big
problem.
fan of poetry. I know you
Oh.
write some poetry. I don't know if you want to share any piece of poetry, if you have something handy. I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, I think we talked about before reading this this Headless Horseman poem that I wrote, and this was kind of the capstone piece, essentially to the entire guide, right? Like this was like the thing that like cemented it on the meme side as opposed to the pure guide side. So Horse was going to queue up a graphic. I don't know if he wants to pull that up or if I should just read it.
I'll pull it up. You ready for it?
Oh, I'm ready, Horse.
All right, here it comes.
So this is the Headless Horseman. The Headless Horseman, been through the desert, met a man with no head, asked what was on his mind. Man, 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 searching, my horse I can't find. What a pity. It's hopeless, man. For every manless horse, a horseless man. When we lose faith, we all go blind. Headless man seeks, trying to see. If we lose horse, manhead is how we are defined. Inquired further, asked him what he desired. Horse, 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 man, he replied. A head man, a horseless head man, behind a headless horse. When asked its name, said the horseman, his name, Horsehead. Man, less horsehead, united with horseless man. Less horse, man head. Horseman, man horse, together at last. Can't help but wonder, somewhere still out there, a horseless man head. So the inspiration for that poem was obviously the picture here, and I believe it was actually Horse that sent that to me, which is quite poetic in its own way. But essentially, I wanted to make a poem that used all 16 or 12 or whatever amount of the horses and men and all that good stuff are on that picture. And I wanted to incorporate it into the Headless Horseman thing. And once I did that, it was, and I've gotten feedback, and like for a lot of people, they don't really care about the guy, but they're just like, man, that poem was awesome.
Yeah, so I've read that poem before, Keith, and I knew you would crush it, obviously, when reading the poem, but that was honestly so much better and more enjoyable than I thought it would be. And it's not lost on me how many times you're saying...
I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's not lost how many times you're saying horse while we are sitting here with Horse Thief. It just, everything about it felt perfect.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. It's not like, it's comprehensible by fact of the cadence in some ways, right? Like some parts of that poem are lost in translation when you just read it, and that's, you know, with poetry you can't always, you know, purely depict stuff through words. So yeah.
All right, well, let's learn a little bit more about Keith the person. Let me ask you anything you want to share here, but what kind of goals do you have, you know, as a person in your personal life or on Twitch or within Storybook Brawl? Just kind of what are your goals, short term, long term, just in general, anything you want to share here?
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say, you know, before when we were talking about the whole like knowing how to read people and doing all that kind of stuff and like trying to like understand people, like a big passion of mine or something that I'm pursuing right now is becoming a professional psychologist. So I've been working on that for about a couple years now for the majority of the pandemic and whatnot. And so one day, like, I want to become at least a counselor, like a therapist of some sort, and potentially a psychologist. It's a lot of education, so I'm kind of working through that.
It really is.
But I think, yeah, and I think like if you think about the way that you would meet a new client and the way that you would analyze them and the way you interact with them. And like, there's a lot of crossover there between like the way that you interact on Twitch and the way that you might interact with a client, right? Like, it's not like you're making all the same decisions. Like, I might like have somebody say something on Twitch where they're like offended by what I say. And like my response, like it acknowledges that I've offended them, but you know, I might choose to respond in one way or the other. And that's what I think is really, it's like a choose your own adventure a lot of this time, right? Like if you're sitting there and you're interacting with another person and you're present and you can notice the things that they're saying, the things that they're doing, then it's up to you as a therapist or as a Twitch memer, like, how am I going to respond to that, right? And sometimes the best way to respond to somebody when you don't know how to say is to just provide an image or a smile or an expression, and that's what's amazing about the Twitch memes, right? Or the Twitch what are they? I can't think what they're called right now, like the emotes. Emotes. Yeah. Is that they have this amazing like ability to express an emotion, right? Like Pepe laugh is like, it's incredible. Like it's like captures like so many different feelings in like a single statement. And so in the same way, when you're there and you're counseling an individual, the way that you express yourself, the way you hold your face, the way that you respond or don't respond, or that kind of stuff. And even with the counseling, right? Like way that I look at counseling, like it's a bit of a puzzle, right? Like there's this person in front of you and they've got a problem. But like, even if you know what their problem is, you can't tell them that. Like they already know that's their problem as well. Like you're both sitting there, you both know they have a problem. But as a counselor, it's not your job to solve the problem for them, right? Like, or tell them what the problem is. Your goal is to like understand them well enough to like trick them into like solving their own problem.
Yeah.
But you're not really tricking them, but that's like the goal. And that's like kind of how counseling and from my perspective, that's a lot about how it works.
I think
so. Yeah.
I think this is a spot where maybe not explicitly, because I don't think we've really discussed a lot of, but even at some underlying level where you and I have connected in some way in this space, even just kind of like founded some kind of, because I've been in that same space before as well. Mine was more of a coaching aspect, but everything you're talking about, you kind of need to get into the box with someone because you need to be able to understand how they're seeing things. And then a lot of what I did with my coaching was finding a strategy that they used in another area of life that was successful, that helped, they could then take and apply. Let's say they're having a personal problem in a relationship, but professionally they're very assertive and they know how exactly to move through that. Professionally, they would, in the office, it wouldn't throw them for a loop at all. So it's kind of interesting. I think that's one of the reasons why I was initially drawn to you.
Yeah, no, me and Horse have had really good conversations, and if we get away a bit just from like the specific like professional aspirations of counseling, like I went through like a pretty long period of chronic pain to the point where like I spent months just like lying on a bed, not able to really move, like just to be straight. But
I didn't know that.
The way that I finally got through that was through this concept of mindfulness and using mindfulness and different like sort of counseling techniques, but they were applied in a more group setting, and then it was up to you to kind of figure them out on your own, stuff like CBT, DBT, but they're all mindfulness based, right? And it's this concept of like being able to like notice your thoughts, feelings, and emotions, and Horace and me have had like various conversations about this kind of stuff. But basically, like with that mindfulness approach, like I'm trying to think of how I don't know, is it like direct connects back specifically, but if you think about having learned all that mindfulness stuff and all those counseling techniques to like help me with my own situation, and having had like such a traumatic period in my life, like what I always heard was like the best way to deal with a really traumatic experience and to like kind of get through it is to find a task that feels meaningful enough to give that purpose, right? So that when you're writing your story of your life, when you look back, you're like, oh, so like I went through all this chronic pain and all this stuff, but that allowed me to become a counselor and to help all these people. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of where that goal came from, is like wanting to, I didn't know if counseling was a big enough goal to like offset everything I went through, but like it felt like it, right? So then I said, okay, well, I'm going to start with that. And so far it's going really well, and I'm really enjoying it. And so, yeah, longer term, I don't know where that goal leads. I don't know if that means psychology or just therapy or whatever, but yeah, we'll just kind of see. You know, people who have been in school know how that is. You're kind of in the middle of it, and you know you had a goal at one point, and you're just trying to get through it now.
So both of you know this already. I tend to be a very positive person. I just naturally am positive. I'm happy. I'm thankful for a lot of things in my life, but also it's not lost on me how you can have an impact on other people around you. Obviously, as a streamer, you never really know how you're influencing or impacting people that are watching. You don't even know who's watching most of the time. I mean, how can you know? But even outside of being online or Twitch, any interaction you have with people can potentially be a meaningful interaction, and you don't know what other people have gone through and their experiences. And I just love interactions with people from different backgrounds, from different parts of the world, different cultures, and learning from them and trying to be a positive influence back towards them, and try to put a smile on somebody's face when I can. So that kind of feeds into this same conversation a bit. Thank you for sharing all that.
No, and Yuck, I'm really glad you mentioned that. Like, there's a couple things there for me. Like, the first of all is that, like, the most meaningful thing you can do for somebody, I believe, is give them your attention, right? There's a lot of psychology behind that. But, like, if you choose to take time out of your life, you take this valuable resource of time, and you choose to focus that on another individual, like, that is one of the most meaningful things you can do, right? And that's partially why counseling works, is because somebody who hasn't had that attention on them in their life, you are now deciding to apply your professional situation to help them with that. But even when you're walking down the street and you see somebody that looks a little bit down and out, they may not have had somewhere to sleep, or they may not look like they've showered in a while, or whatever's going on in their life, right? More than money even, and I truly believe this, looking them in the eye and saying, "Have a good day. How's it going?" Some way of acknowledging that you're not just shuffling by them, trying to avoid them panhandling, right? So that's like something I try to do on like a regular basis. So that's just like the most extreme example, right? But like, it's almost my mission every time I walk by somebody, I want to make eye contact and say hello, right? I love that. I love interacting with people out there, and personally, like, I get a little bit of a kick out of it. Like, I enjoy when other people acknowledge me, but at the same time, I want to acknowledge other people too. So I think that's a really good statement, Yuck, is that, like, no matter who you're interacting with out there, you can always acknowledge them and say hi and make their day a little bit better. And slowly but surely, like, we can all do that, right? And Yuck's even done that for me, right? Like, we've had times during his streaming career where we've had conversations in chat and whatnot where he's said, like, I'm making a personal decision to not be negative anymore. And, I'm not sure exactly how those conversations have gone or how those things have went, but it's like, every once in a while I'll think back and be like, remember when Yuck said, like, don't be negative? It's like, maybe I won't be negative here. Maybe I'll try that. And several times I've, like, come back to Yuck and been like, hey, Yuck, like, really appreciate your positive mindset. It really helped me today. Thanks for doing that. And so if I'm out there saying that, and, it's doing that for me, like, I got to assume there's other people out there in chat that Yuck's done that for too, right? And even on the other side, like, for me with, like, Conversations Horse Thieves chat, right? Horse Chief, the new nickname. But, like, very focused on, using language that makes people feel included in chat, and, not being. It's one thing to say that you're supporting others in their struggles and their journeys, but it's another thing to have somebody, like, say an offensive thing in chat or a, like, questionable thing in chat and be like, nope, that's not okay. That's why it's not okay. And here's why we're going to talk about it. And that's happened in Horse's chat too. So I don't think everybody has to have the same agenda. I don't think everybody has to have the same policies and everything. But I respect the hell out of Horse for choosing to stop and have those conversations. Because that's not always easy as a streamer, right? You don't always want to call people out, but when it's required, and he's answered the call. So.
Well, I think there's something that kind of the three of us, and then, it's certainly spiderwebbed out that we found a lot of people who also feel similarly, but there are a couple of things that I hold closely in my belief system that I think are just true of you two as well. We were just talking about, one thing is respecting other people's model of the world. I don't see things the same way as everybody else sees things. I've only seen things based on my own experience, which is, if you think about the vast sum of the human experience, a very small fragment of what that human... So I certainly can't know everything, so it costs me nothing to respect. Maybe I don't agree with everything but I at least respect that everybody is having their own individual human experience. And then the second part of that is to make the base assumption that people are doing the very best they can with the resources they have available. So people are not out here, and that's where I draw my lines personally, and I think this also ties back to why you end up, Keith, being a mod and being such a an integral figure in the community, whichever chat, whichever channel, wherever you happen to be in the Twitch space, is we don't accept just meanness for the sake of meanness. There's nothing interesting or entertaining about simply being mean to another human being just because you can. If we want to talk about why it was that you felt the need to communicate in that way. Sure, we can have a conversation about that. Why was that what you thought was going to be funny or the best that you could possibly do with what you had available? But as long as I think and again, this is an assumption and I'm mind reading a little bit here, but I think we do, all three of us in our own way, do those two things. We respect other people, regardless of if we understand it, and we would like to understand more for sure. And we tend to assume that people are doing their very best with what they've got available.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I won't speak for Yuck, but I definitely agree with that. I also think I go too far, like 100%, right? Like I know I do it, right? I don't think I'm discriminatory. I don't think I'm racist, but like I think like, because when you say like we're not just mean to other people for the sake of being mean, it's like
I don't believe that though. Even in the situations where like you talked about how you interact in Collect Stream and how the two of you communicate back and forth, there's a rapport there. You have a foundation and understanding, and that's why it can be such a stark contrast when someone comes in completely new and they see the Keith meme and they see the Keith persona and they start going, oh, I'm going to pile on Keith because this is how we do it in this community. And I bristle at that sometimes. I'm like, you haven't bothered to build a relationship with Keith. You don't even know who Keith is. You don't even understand the enigma of this online personality. Like, take a step back and figure some things out first before you start just insulting Keith because LOL, it's funny.
Yeah, no, it's true though. And that's what I was struggling with. Like, I didn't really understand like how to handle it. So I started to look at Random Stranger X less as Random Stranger X and more as just like random strangers A through Z, right? So that's how that group will interact. There's a certain group of people on Twitch that are just going to treat me a certain way because of the fact that I've become this kind of mascot figure. But like, just to get back to what I was saying about the meanness thing, like, I think I might be too mean sometimes, like even to random chatters. But I always, when I feel like I've gone too far, I will always follow it up with something acknowledging that, right? I will give them a heart. I will give them a smiley face. I will do something that says to them, oh, he was just making a joke, right? That's what I try to do. So like you said, like that rapport building piece, like if I feel like I've gone too far, I will try to make some type of comment that like does acknowledge that. Because I can treat them like random strangers A through Z, and that's not who they are either, right? So
So I feel like we could talk about this stuff for hours, and I've enjoyed this part of the conversation. I do want to pull it back to Storybook Brawl a little bit. I kind of put this out there as well in the previous question. But what are your goals in Storybook Brawl? I know you're not necessarily playing the game just to have it be a competitive thing for you. Obviously, you're very good at the game and competitive in some ways. You have to be that good at the game. But are your goals within the game community based? Like, do you just want to make everybody a book mage enthusiast? Would that be your ultimate goal? Convincing people that your strategy is the new meta, or do you have goals outside of that? I'm really curious what your goals are inside the game.
Yeah, well, I'll do a little bit of navel gazing and just look back on kind of how I got to where I am. But just to say, like when I first started out, I wanted to be Storybook Brawl #1, right? Like I was top 10 at the very start of the game. There have been periods in my life, like there was a period in time where I was forcing book mages at the start of the Pumpkin patch. I was top 10, like purely forcing book mages. So like it has been possible in the game's life.
Wait, are you talking about Pumpkin Latte season by any chance?
Pumpkin Latte season. That was a term that Happiness originated and convinced me to help spread with him. So we quite enjoyed that period for maybe just that reason.
The PSLS.
But basically, my goals have changed. When I was streaming, part of the reason I had to stop streaming is with all the other pressures on me right now, I just couldn't handle the stress of needing to have a certain number be high enough to feel like I could teach other people. And that's something I've always respected about Yuck, is that like, and he does not just say this, he believes this, he doesn't care what his number is. His number is always way higher than most people in the game, right? But that's not his focus. But I don't know how to separate the two. I don't need to be the best player ever, but for me to be sitting there streaming in the way that I want to stream, and like describe to other people like what they should be doing, if my rating is not at least like 4,500 or whatever that number is, like I'll like stream a bit, do poorly, drop down to 4,300, then I'll have to go off stream. It's like, oh god, like I gotta play more, and then I'll do worse. And like it's just this toxic cycle for me. So I had to step back, like you said, like what are my goals, right? So my goal was not to stream anymore. What is my goal now? The tournaments, similarly, I never enjoyed them. I found them to be too narrow a piece of a skill expression in a situation where I'm not the best player anyways. So I just don't know how to set reasonable goals in that tournament. So like I had to step back from the tournaments too. And honestly, like stepping back from streaming, stepping back from all that kind of stuff has given me a much more positive relationship with the game. I still want to do well. I think every season I would like to hit 5K. I've never hit 5K, but like every season I would like to be pursuing that goal. But I want to be pursuing that goal on my own terms. And I really wouldn't know how to otherwise. Like if I had to go to 5K every season playing the way Yuck does, I think I'd quit the game. Like it's just not my play style, right? Like Yuck thinks not only does Yuck not like forcing, he hates forcing.
It's true.
Whereas I like legitimately, I love forcing. I love finding the strategy and forcing the strategy. Now, the strategy might not always be like the best strategy, but it's whatever strategy I've decided that intersects with fun and payoff for me. And I like to do that. So within the scope of like what I'm capable of in the game and what I actually want to do when I'm playing, right? When I'm investing my free time, like what do I want to do? So that kind of would answer that. So I'd like to hit 5K. I haven't done that yet, but maybe one season.
I believe you'll do it for sure.
Yeah.
And I really like how you bring up play styles being a thing. What a great game that we all play, Storybook Brawl, that allows for different play styles and different ways to enjoy the game. You can play the game casually, certainly. And you mentioned this earlier, Keith, how you first started playing the game and then you discovered something else. And then you discovered something else, right? It's a game you can pick up easily. It takes a long time to really fully understand it. And I'm still learning. I've played the game a lot, a ridiculous amount of hours. I don't know the number or I would share it. But I love the game, and I continue to learn. And we do have very different play styles. I like the intricate decisions between basically being willing to change my mind repeatedly, not only on a turn-by-turn basis, but on a gold-by-gold basis within a turn is what I love about the game. But I truly love and try to appreciate how other people see the game differently than I do.
Yeah, and within that, there can be many turns, many shops. You and me stare at the shop, and we both say, do this, right? Or you have a positioning thing, and I say, oh, do that, and you say, oh yeah, okay. So like that doesn't mean that like we're playing different games. It doesn't mean that we think the other person is wrong. It's just that the way that we value specific game pieces and specific game states is different. And so like I can choose to, every once in a while, every certain patches, like I'll be sitting there and I'll be like, what would Yuck do here? This looks like a Yuck situation. and I try to use the Yuck approach, right? So it's a tool. It's a tool for me, right? Yuck's a tool essentially. So that's all I'm trying to say.
So,
I love it.
One side thing I got to note is that Friendly Phoenix has arrived. It just we gotta send some love Friendly Phoenix's way with big sub
man.
bumps. But
Friendly Phoenix, stop horse. Friendly Phoenix, #1 community member, has paid for my mortgage. Like just incredible. The energy, the Wonder Waddle, like all of it. I don't know if anybody out there doesn't know who she is, but she's incredible. Shout outs to Friendly Phoenix. Anyway, what were you saying, Horse?
Well, what you're talking about, it was a fundamental shift for me when I started to realize, wait, because at first you're learning a lot. There's a lot of information, like Yuck was saying. There's a lot just going on, and you constantly are picking things up. And you do kind of need to be constantly challenging your own thoughts and assumptions, and you need to be learning. Otherwise, you're just going to play the same way forever, right? But it also, there's a lot of power, and there's a big sense of satisfaction in going, wait a minute, I do know exactly how I like to navigate through this game, and if things go like, I've got my playstyle that I like to play the most, and that is what, and when you can settle into and go, you know what, I can play the way I enjoy playing, and that's just fine. That's cool. That's a big moment.
Yeah. One thing I was gonna say, Yuck, like one thing I know is that certain strategies I gravitate towards because I know other people think they're bad, right? Like I love
the contrarian.
I love taking Eye of Ares. I love taking Eye of Ares. Every time I get Eye of Ares, I giggle to myself and I'm like, ha ha ha.
You've convinced me to play it more though.
Well, yeah, right, and that's part of it. Is that like I know Average is better than people think it is. So it's like,
It
but
is.
it's like I imagine like, what if Twitch chat was watching me right now? Like, what would they say? Like, I don't know. Like,
There's so many things I want to say right now. First of all, going back to Friendly Phoenix, we've got Keith here, such an important member of the community. For me and for I think a lot of other people, Friendly Phoenix is a very important member of
oh
the
yeah.
community as well. Also, I have to circle back just a little bit, Keith, because
Uh-oh.
I know what you said was a compliment, but you did call me a tool.
I
Oh,
heard
you
it.
caught that,
I
did
heard it.
you?
Yep, yep, yep. We all heard it.
So well played. Also, you keep using that yuck tool, you're gonna get 5K in no time.
Oh,
So-
there you
Oh,
go.
wow.
That's the easy button right there. 5K, boom.
That yuck tool. Now we're gonna need to create a branded yuck tool. Is it gonna be a Leatherman? What a?
We'll have to figure that out.
Okay.
Okay, well, there's one other thing that we had talked about doing other than getting to know Keith. I hope we have time to kind of squeeze this in a bit. I've been needing for a long time to create a tier list.
Yeah, me too.
And I don't always get around to it because, I'm always changing my mind on things, which is a great thing. It keeps the game interesting. But I don't want to always commit to a tier list. Horse Thief, you as well. You've been needing to make a tier list. What better time to do it when we can do it together? We obviously agree on a lot of things in the game, but there are things we don't agree about as well. So I don't know if you all are up for making a tier list. I'll be honest, I do know that you're up for it because we talked about it. So maybe we can work on a tier list and see what we agree and disagree on here.
All right, here we are. So, I mean, I'm just going to start maybe, I don't know if you all have the stream popped up, and I'm going to start dragging. I think we can all pretty much agree in current state, Waddle's going to go at the top. But beyond that, we're going to have a lot of differing opinions. So I'm going to start dragging some of these in here that we feel. So you actually, how should we go about this? I should probably just start populating the list and you can start talking.
Yeah.
Waddle S tier, that's kind of just agreed upon by literally everybody. If there's not anybody that agrees with that, I'd love to have a conversation with you and understand your perspective. But the hero's amazing right now. Yeah, everything else, let's just have you start kind of putting things roughly where you think, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I think, trying to think of like what some of my top, like some of my heroes that I would have near the top personally would be stuff like Curse King, Share Bear, Fallen Angel.
One that I think is going to be very interesting for us is Zelhua, as I see Horse Thief dragged up to A tier. Horse Thief, I'm not sure. I'd be curious what you think about Zelhua. Because at 45 health, I felt like it was one of the strongest heroes in the game. At 40 health, I do think it's good, but I struggle to understand how to value it at the 40 health total.
I simply don't play it. I don't know how good it is or bad it is. I didn't even like it at 45 health. I knew it was a good hero. I played it. I don't play it.
I personally think Zell's not one that appeals to me. I went back and I looked at numbers, and there are a handful of heroes that get me like a crown every 3 games, and Zell was one of them. Zell was like 1 out of 3 I was crowning, but I play it like a fraction of the times that I play the other ones. I just didn't really enjoy the playstyle. So for me right now, I'm probably putting Zell near the top of B tier. I think it's solid, and I can still have good games with it, but it's more of an enjoyment factor for me. It may actually be A tier strength, but I don't play enough of it to feel super confident in getting the most efficient lines. Whereas, Yuck, I know you play a lot of it, and you can have these moments where you're like, 2 gold is 2/3 of another character. I'm skipping this treasure. We're moving on. We're getting the next character because that's stronger right now.
Actually,
you're very focused.
I love Zelhua for that reason, because it fits my playstyle, the playstyle of constantly evolving and changing your strategy and your plan, and valuing gold. Even from the early game, it's such a big deal. I do think it's still A tier, by the way. I do. It just wouldn't have been the first or the second thing I grabbed to put into A tier. And I am still trying to figure out exactly how to value it. But I do still think it's very good. I love the hero. But it's an interesting one. How 5 starting health can have such a big impact. I love that the devs have taken that as a strategy for buffing and nerfing heroes. I think it's kind of a subtle thing, but has a big impact and effect on the strength of a hero.
surprisingly effective. Like
Yeah.
the 5 health, like a lot of times I'll think to myself like, oh, is Horde Draken really that much? It's like, yeah, it's like so much worse. But I still think so a hero that has done better this patch for me than I expected has been Horde Dragon. I thought Horde Dragon is I think Celestial Tiger has underperformed for me. I know on paper it's supposed to be good, but I wouldn't have it A tier personally.
Well, so
I know you played a lot, Yuck. So
I have a hunch that our
yeah.
first two are probably going to be Waddle and then Piper. Do we have any major Piper's just Piper, right?
I would even put Piper in S, but I know that's a bit controversial. So
Yeah, I like Piper at the top of A. I think the Waddle deserves to be in a tier of its own right now, is the way I look at that.
fair enough.
Yeah.
I think Piper is good in the same way that Waddle doesn't always high roll. Like Piper doesn't always high roll either. But anyways, we can leave it in A. I'm okay with A, honestly. Like I don't have a strong enough opinion to say, oh, it's definitely S tier. So
I think also the only one in my book that occupies E tier is Mrs. Claus right now.
Skip is pretty bad. I really don't like Skip.
Oh, I
right
like
now.
Skip right now. I actually think Skip is at its best compared to previous metas. I think it's better now than it's been before.
I couldn't tell if Skip
Yeah.
should be top of C or bottom B, but I feel like that's where Skip is for me, is low B, high C.
Oh, I like Pan Shadow a lot, yeah.
I think Pan Shadow for me right now, the way things are going, even in front of Piper, Waddled and Pan Shadow are like two of my most successful. Piper's, it's close. But
Yeah,
I think that one might...
I wouldn't put him above. I would still put Loki. I love Loki this patch too. Like I put him above Pan Shadow personally. I like Curse King really high, but I'm not sure how high that should be.
For me, my top four are going to be Waddle, Piper, Pan Shadow, Celestial Tiger, just based on results this patch. If it's just this patch specific, but Loki is real close to those. But Tiger, we had some consternation. I don't think Yuck, you like Pan Shadow a whole lot.
Well, I can't get that high on Pan Shadow. I do think it's very good with some of the changes that have come about. I think Staff of the Old Told and that being built into Pan Shadow essentially are very valuable. But I really kind of lean towards early game hero powers. I always have. So I do think it's good. I think it probably is A tier. I don't think it's in the top 5 for me, but we can talk about that a little bit more as we sort through some of these tiers a little bit.
I see the Horseman's left to the end.
Well, that one's going to be an interesting one. I'm not sure where to put that yet.
I'm very low on Horseman this patch. I don't think he's very good.
Oh, yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Excuse me?
I mean, I wrote my Gwen guide, and I don't think
results.
Gwen's that great right now.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'd still put him C tier, but, you know.
That would be fair for me.
No.
All right, so we don't have to nitpick this too much, but where do we want to start? Do we want to start at the top and work our way down, or start at the bottom and work our way up?
Let's start at the top, and then, like, whatever. The bottom is what it is, right?
Okay. Anything that stands out glaringly for you, Keith, within A tier? I think we pretty well agree with the S tier.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing Catter a bit lower, Curse King a bit higher, I guess.
I could live with that.
I don't love APOC in A tier personally, but other than that, I'm pretty happy.
I agree with all of those things, actually. I like Catter lower. I like APOC down to B tier.
You like APOC
and I like Curse King higher.
APOC is
also
free top 4. I win like 1 out of 15 games with it, but I'm going to take second or third if I pick APOC most of the time. It has been
if you
so
get to
successful
6, it's
for
amazing.
Me. I get to 6 most. I have had 2 finishes in my numbers outside of top 4. APOC is so consistent for me this patch. I'll move it down, but I'm just saying you're sleeping on APOC. Something's going wrong in your APOC games.
I play APOC a lot, and I love it. I don't always make it to level 6, and it's not by playing greedy. Some lobbies are just tough, and you can't get there. Like, sometimes you just can't. So there's enough risk there. I think the hero's very good. I wouldn't have it that high. Also, I think Fallen Angel needs to go higher. Fallen Angel, even though it's not a hero that I love to play, is exceptionally strong.
I wouldn't put it a lot higher. I'm okay with it being bottom of A tier because I do think it gives you a lot of tempo, but it does really constrain what your actual picks can be. And I feel like I don't know this for sure, but I feel like it harms your ability to get treasures somehow. I feel like I don't get as many treasures on Fallen Angel.
So I'm thinking, we talked a little bit about Tiger, right? And I got that in the number 4 slot overall, but it sounded to me like y'all were pushing Tiger down a bit.
Like, where would you put Tiger? What tier would you put Tiger in,
Oh, it would be an A tier, certainly for me. Again, in the past, I haven't been a big fan of Tiger. Currently, I'm a huge fan of Tiger.
Okay.
For sure, for me, it's an A tier. Where it goes
Yeah.
in A tier, we could talk about. I think I would move Zelhua down a little bit. And
I
Tiger,
agree.
I think it's one that it's tough. I think it's tough even for me myself to place it because I think it's very powerful. But it's another one of those heroes. It's a treasure-based hero that the games that you don't do well seem really, really tough, and those tend to stick
Yeah.
with you in your
Yeah.
memory, right? But
That's
the games
true.
that go well, so first of all, I think it's very consistent, but then the games that go well sometimes go really well. Let's talk about early level 7 treasures.
Yeah.
So I'm okay with it in the top 5, but because I'm a little on the fence, I could also see moving it down a little bit.
The one I'm confused about too is Curse King in both of your top 5s.
If honestly, Horse, I pick it over anybody except Waddle and Piper. So that's how high I value it.
It's B tier in my in my heart. But so that one's one I'm having trouble because right now the way we've got it is Waddle, Piper, Loki, Tiger, CK. Is there anything glaring that would go
throw him
above?
bottom of A, if you want to throw Curse King like above Share Bear in A, I'm okay with that.
We
But
got
I'm
we
just
got
saying,
2 here
for
in the
me,
A tier that would not be in my own personal A tiers. But that's
Right.
fine. This is a collective thing. I'm just these
Yeah.
these are the ones I'm kind of struggling with. But you also
Yeah,
like Share
but-
Bear quite a bit, and I'm low on Share Bear right now.
I mean, I don't know where to value Share Bear. I like it a lot, but I recognize that it's hard to value correctly because you don't know what it's doing to the rest of the lobby.
I guess it's kind of got a feeling of Fallen Angel where if you get the right shops early, you can just take off and like, put the pedal to the metal and keep moving. Whereas if
Yeah.
things kind of sputter early, then Share Bear and FA can feel real funny to play.
Well,
Yeah.
let me throw a wrench into this a little bit.
Okay.
I'd be open to maybe moving one of these down, but I'm looking at Beauty in B tier. And I
Yeah.
think Beauty is very strong. I think it's a hero that doesn't really have a weakness. It has a pretty effective hero power throughout the game. As early as level 3, you can get some fun synergies with good or evil supports with things like Polywoggle or like Doubly, things like Queen of Hearts. And then late game, it obviously opens up a lot of potential, and it has higher starting health. So I don't know if either of you are willing to put it up to A tier and swap it with something, or at least it just moves up in B tier.
What do you think about
Yeah,
Beauty, Keith?
I don't play it a lot. Something has been lost in the. There's still early game tempo in this meta, but like high rolling is really important. So if you can like force tier 3 treasures and like treasure map out of Beauty or something, like I think it can be very strong. I personally don't pick it a lot. However, I would be willing to say drop Share Bear down to B and put Beauty up in A if the group was okay with that.
I'd be okay with that.
All right, let's do that.
I thought last patch that Beauty was D tier for me.
Oh wow.
And then Yuck kept saying, I heard Yuck say literally top 5 hero for me. Top 5. Beauty top 5. I heard you say it multiple times, and I was like, I'm missing something.
Yeah.
I started playing it, and my opinion of Beauty has shifted up, not to A tier. It's not personally A tier for me.
Okay.
That's why I stuck it in B, because I was just kind of sticking
Sure.
things by my gut. But I'm willing to let that happen.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
I'm-
I think your opinion is probably similar to mine. I'm just going to say it can go to A tier. We move Share Bear down. I personally like this better.
Do we even like Mask in A tier? I think Mask is just so darn good.
I think it's
Yeah.
fine.
Okay.
I like it.
Bottom of A feels good to me for Mask. It feels like where Mask has been like the majority of the game, to be honest.
Okay, on to B tier. First glance for me, I want Snow Angel higher, and I
Yeah.
hate to say this. It pains me to say this. I don't think Pup belongs in B tier. I think it has to go
Oh
lower.
baby, get it out of there, Horse.
I kind of put it in there out of respect because I know how much you love Pup. I don't play
I
it.
do. I love it to this day. I love it. It's been one of my favorite heroes from day one. I love the way that positioning works in this game and how supports work in this game. The first time I played it, I absolutely fell in love with that mechanic, and Pup just kind of fed into that. And the hero is still amazing to me. It's just not perfect for this meta.
Yeah.
Sorry, Pup, but you got to go down a little bit in this tier.
Yeah,
list.
exactly.
I know there's going to be some consternation, but for me, if APOC's in B tier, I got to have it first in B tier. But I'll let you.
Okay.
We could readjust some things depending on what.
Out of this list, I think I would put APOC and Snow Angel as the top 2 in B tier.
Snow
in
Angel.
either order
I don't
you want.
play any Snow Angel, so that one's tricky for me.
I do like I've heard good things about Snow Angel. I've played Snow Angel. I've had good results. So I don't know what to say, but I like it.
Reading the hero power, I undervalued it. The more I play it, the more I realize its power level. So I would assume that if you haven't been playing it much, that if you give it a try, you would have a similar experience.
I also got to kind of think Catter needs to be way up in my own personal. I could stick it in front of these, but
I don't know where Catter goes. Anywhere in B is fine by me. Like, I like it, but I also don't think it's the best meta for it. But
I don't think it's
agree.
good.
I don't think it's the best metaphor, but I'm still having solid performances on it, and yeah, it's
Yeah,
not.
but how big of a sample size are we talking? Because Catter is going to have more variance than most heroes because where do the buffs go, right? So if it's a big enough sample size, that obviously has some merit. But I just think it's too inconsistent and all over the place. You know, sometimes the games are going to go amazing, but then sometimes the buffs hit chickens and eggs, and you know, and those games feel terrible.
No, you're right. I think I might be actually for this patch. I push it back. It's in my top 10, but it's like right on. Or actually, it's number 11. It's like just slightly above average this patch, whereas all time it's way above average.
yeah, I just like I know this sounds stupid, but it's like kind of the Mary Kondo approach. Like when I just think about like when I look at a hero and I get on my select screen, like how do I feel? And like when I see Catter, like I still feel good. Like I'm just like, oh sick, I have Catter.
Yeah.
Like
Catter is a hero that I've always wanted to like Catter. Like the sound of it is amazing. I read that hero power and I watch somebody else play it. In fact, there's one time in particular where I was watching Icarus play on stream, and Icarus played Catter, and to be honest, the Catter game didn't even go that well, but it felt good to watch him play Catter. And so the very next day, I decided, okay, I'm going to play Catter. I picked it over a hero that I would normally take priority with. It went terribly. I hated every second of it, and then vowed to not play it again. And then some time passes, and I circle back to it and play it again, and sometimes they go well, but I don't know. It's a hero that I truly want to like. I just can't make myself do it.
Actually, I'm looking at things right now. Horde Dragon is my number 6 overall, right above Apocalypse, right behind Loki. Loki is my number 5. Horde Dragon would be A tier in a heartbeat for me. So Horde Dragon is kind of low here on this list compared to my own ranking.
Well, you can have Horde Dragon, you can have APOC, but you can't have both first.
I think we're gonna have to compromise because I would put Horde Dragon not even in B tier. It would be lower than that for me.
Really?
I would have it in B. I've had good results on it.
All right, B is a great compromise then.
All right.
Yeah, exactly. Let's leave B alone. I think B feels good enough to me.
Well, it does, but hang on. But before we get completely away from B, I want Skip in B tier personally.
You want Skip in B tier?
Absolutely not.
No?
Skip is right behind Catter for me right now. In terms of I've been having some pretty good Skip runs lately.
Well, we've got two people who think Skip is good. I've played one game on it all patch, so I don't really have a valid opinion on Skip. So if y'all want to put it in B tier, I'd be okay with that. I personally wouldn't, but
I'm not going to fight for this one, but I personally want it in B tier. Listen, I was willing to move Pup down to C tier. That's a big deal for me. I feel like that should be the tiebreaker here.
It's up to you two. I'm not. I don't feel qualified to weigh in.
Some of these.
All right. Well, it leaves it to you, Horse Thief. Whatever you want to do.
I'll leave it bottom of B. I think Skip is sneaky good right now, actually.
You know who's sneaky bad this patch is Midas. Holy
yeah,
crap.
You're right. And you know, at one point in time, Keith, I called myself a Midas main.
Are you saying D tier Midas?
Came out.
Oh, it's D. Yeah, Midas.
Yeah, it's D tier.
I put it in C out of respect again because I don't play Midas.
So when Midas first came out, I'm confident that I played that hero more than anybody else because I really liked it. And it's a hero that plays very differently, but I think once you learn how to approach the game with Midas, it just makes a lot of sense. It fit my playstyle. And then some changes happened within the game, and Midas feels incredibly weak right now. I hate to say it, but Midas in D.
Also, Jax Giant and Merlin. I don't want Jax Giant in C. I could see Merlin being bottom of C or top of D. I don't think it's great.
I could scoot Jax down. Merlin.
I've tried Jax a bit. I know Magus is pretty high on it, but my results have not been good lately. It doesn't even seem like the hero power gives you any like boost in the first couple. Like it doesn't even give you a boost on tier 2 sometimes, and it doesn't matter on tier 3. It feels so.
All right, so I'm prepared to be judged right here. I do like Jax Giant down to D. I think Trophy Hunter, as much as I hate to say this, I think it needs to be higher.
Yeah.
I do think Trophy Hunter is strong right now. It's not my favorite hero, but I'm
fine with bottom C for Trophy.
Yeah, I do think it needs to move up.
Yeah.
Probably above Merlin, probably above Galahad. Grandmother actually is one of the weird ones where, like, I think is a ladder all-star. I still like Grandmother. I have the lowest sample size, but it's actually my number 7. But I just barely ever want to play it. But when I play it, things tend to just go well. But also, like, I think the couple of times I've picked it in tournament meta and realized how punishing it is having 0 hero power, like the 10 extra health don't even matter. Like, Grandmother's one of those that, in my heart, is a lump of coal. But on ladder, tends to actually go fairly well because you have a little bit more time to be a little bit more greedy. I don't know if it belongs in C tier, but just that's my 2 cents on
I have
Grandmother.
no experience on Grandma. I cannot comment.
I like Grandmother roughly where it's at. My next thought as I look at this is I know we moved Pup down to C tier. I think it needs to be lower in C tier. Still, I'm saying things that are painful for me to say.
Who's
I am because I want the hero to be strong.
This is a place of truth, Yuck. We're all sharing our truth.
Yeah,
today.
listen, I try to always be honest in all scenarios. There's no way it can be above Potion Master and some of these other heroes that we have in C tier.
I think
Morgan can be pretty
Pup
good.
and Horseman have to be next to one another. Wherever they go, Pup and Horseman, that's just kind of like poetic.
I think Avella is a strong one in the C tier, honestly. Avella, I don't think leaves you with any of the, like, I think it leaves you with a lot of wacky pumpkin lines, which doesn't always match up perfectly into the Princess P boards that you're seeing and some of the big stat. But I think Avella often gets you to the late game fairly healthy and gives you a chance to go multiple ways. I think it's probably a stronger C.
In theory, it just depends. Like, to me, it's like Beauty in the sense that like she gives you a lot of tempo, but like I guess Beauty isn't as limited, so that's probably the difference.
I do agree.
Both can give you tempo, but like they don't give you like the way that they give you tempo is not like value oriented. So you need to find ways to like treasure out of the tempo into something valuable.
Yeah.
So.
Like, Avella will leave you chilling with your Black Cats going, I don't know why it's level 6 and I'm still playing Black Cats, but I'm at 35 HP because I found some Black Cats. Like, that's Avella's story.
Well, and that's where I like to play, like, a little bit more of the pumpkin spice latte meta, where it's, like, kind of about, like, going to spike those 3s, but you're, like, really gunning for that treasure map out, right? Like, if you fall into Hatball, great. But like you really want to be like getting into the treasure map into a 7, like building around that in like an ideal scenario.
Okay, I'm fairly satisfied with C tier. Any final thoughts from either of you here?
I would just be curious to know kind of Karen and Gwen, where people feel about those cards. I've never loved Karen. I've loved Gwen in the past. I think she's fallen off quite a bit.
Yeah.
They both feel fine to me, but we haven't really talked about them. So.
Well, Karen is, I think, pretty strong with the right opening shop, but you're very dependent on the opening shop. Probably as dependent, or maybe more so than even Fate.
Similar to Gwen, right?
Yeah, it's very important. Gwen does, I think, have a better fallback plan. If you don't get a good opening shop, you can always save for a mix of Wiz into Knighthood, or there are some other options, say on level 4. You know, who doesn't love an early spiked feasting dragon?
Oh, yeah.
I know I would do that. I also know there's always that turn 1 Horse Thief play of Polywoggle.
Oh, I love it.
Spike.
I still
Shout out
against
to
it this
Horse
day.
Thief. I've become a firm believer in the turn 1 Polywog spike, and I dunked on Horse relentlessly on stream for doing
I
that.
think this is probably the meta or the patch where it may be the least enticing, but anytime there's a good 3, anytime there's more than one good 3, and then also if you then go to level 3 and immediately find a kiss in the first shop, you feel like such a champ. But I did multiple times in that wacky dwarf meta when Princess White was really strong. Turn 1 Poly Spike turned into an upgraded Princess White on turn 2, and I was just like, okay, I guess it's my game now.
But you've always got the kissing booth out, right?
Yeah.
Where you just like mix a kiss and like that's the thing. That's the thing about Gwen. But I think this is appropriate. I think this feels correct to me.
I don't play any Charon really, and I think kind of roughly how as much as I love Gwen right now, this is about where I like it. I'd rather play it than the ones below it.
So I see Grapefruit in chat. Apparently did not realize that Mix-a-Whizzle into knighthood allows you to keep the character.
Yep.
So Grapefruit, look forward to having some fun with that in the near
There you
future.
go.
I'm expecting that you're going to find a way to
Wait,
experiment
but
with
that means that they're going to be playing Gwen now. So basically, we've told them to play Gwen, which is that where we want to be?
Well, I mean, if that's what you end up playing, that's a fun thing that you can do. You may want to pick
There
something
you
higher.
go,
We have a
there you
list
go.
of things. If it's higher on the list, we're saying you're probably going to do better, right?
Yeah. Okay, so I think maybe we're ready to go to D tier, and
Yeah.
my first comment here, and I'm gonna have to give a shout out to Yaki.
Oh no! Don't say it, Yak.
I don't want to say it.
Do not say that. This is. I thought we were
Listen.
gonna keep things PG on this stream. Come on.
Keith, I love disagreeing with you. I'm looking at all of the other heroes as well, and none of these do I really want to play. If I have to choose one,
All
I'm gonna
right.
have to shout out Yaki here
Yeah.
and say I have to put Geppetto. No,
Oh,
not Krampus. Not Krampus.
Oh, good. Okay, I was
Not
worried.
Krampus.
Pedo. Wow.
Yaki also likes Geppetto. I want to move Geppetto to the top of D tier. I don't
I can live
necessarily.
with it, but man,
Yeah.
it's a hard sell to want to play Geppetto.
I don't know. I took 14 from Geppetto on 3.1 the other day. That was fun.
Oh, hey, Horse Thief, check Discord.
Things I didn't mean to share. They got a new royal monster pulled up. Well, that's cool. For the board game, So they got a new board game that they've spun
Yeah.
up.
Yeah,
Very
really
neat.
excited to find out more about the board game. I've gotten a few details, but excited to get more. But I wish I was close to Seattle and could join. But if there is anybody that is able to do so, PAX West currently going on. Yeah, please, if you're around in the area or if you happen to already be going to PAX West, make sure you stop by and check this new stuff out. Amazing. And the artwork, let me say, we get some artwork here that we get to
yeah.
see. And all of the other artwork, it's been such a treat, I guess, seeing some of this new artwork get released, and talking to other people about what their favorite is. Horse Thief, I know you saw the new Darkwood Creeper art, and you were a big fan. I really am in love with the Neon artwork myself. Keith, I don't know if you have a favorite out of some of the ones that they've been releasing, but I'm curious.
Well, since I've
Yeah,
already
it
accidentally
definitely-
shared some of the logistical conversation on the back end, I am now sharing the artwork for this new royal monster on stream. Since you've heard us talking about planning for announcements for the cover to cover.
Well, I think I don't know if purple is the prince's color, so I don't think it's gonna be this one, you know. But no, I like the Darkwood Creeper. Really, I think that art is.
Oh, it's cool.
There's just I love the grimdark aesthetic. I love the little mushrooms, and I love the way that I don't know if this will carry through on the card, but I love the way that the art tells a story, right? The story that like so when the Darkwood Creeper takes damage or the things it's protecting takes damage, these little mushroom things kind of like fill in the gaps and heal the thing and then make it stronger, right? Like the whole it's exactly what fantasy art connected to a game should be. So huge fan of the
What about Green Knight, Keith?
Yeah, it's great. It's great, but it's not creeper art, right? I mean,
Okay.
only
That new
one may
creeper art's
stand.
cool.
So.
That new creeper art is real
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. All of it is great for what it's worth.
And I will say, looking at the art, like for some of the first couple ones, I was like, oh, is this like really better? Like, did they really have to do new art? Like, I thought it was like equivalent, maybe whatever. But then like some of these latest pieces have just been like incredible. So I'm just like really excited to see the way that the direction keeps going.
Oh, the new
So.
lightning dragon is sweet. I mean, we could pull up the Twitter account and scroll through some of the new arts, but
Yeah, they're all amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt. Definitely go check out that Twitter.
So shout out. Let me take a moment to shout out the art team, everybody that's
Yeah.
been involved in producing this art, the SBB team that is continuing to give us content in the game and has led us to the game that we have right now, an incredible game that we all obviously love. And the team working on the board game as well, which we're eagerly awaiting more details about, and I can't wait to get a chance to play it. So thanks to everybody that's involved, community as well. I talked about it several times today. I talk about it on a regular basis, how much I value the community personally. It's feels pretty rare to have such a good community within gaming. We're very lucky to have that. So yeah, shout out to everybody that's involved. And I'm guessing we're just kind of done with the tier list. I tend to agree with you, Keith.
Yeah.
D tier is, they just all are clumped together in
Yeah.
D tier, I think.
yeah.
Yeah, I agree. D for do not play, pretty much.
Fair enough.
Well, I'll save this up. I'll post this into our Discord, the Cover to Cover Discord, after the fact, if people want to be able to reference that. This is our collective. How do we horse yuck?
The Borg tier list.
I don't know how best to combine our three names, but yeah, the hive mind.
Yucky thief.
Yucky thief. That's hard. Ooh, I don't know. I don't think I could say that 5 times fast.
Can you type it though? That's the question.
Probably.
Yeah, I think I didn't really. I kept chat closed just because I wanted to be like focused in the moment. I don't know if there was anything else that needed to be covered, or.
Well, I have one more thing. I have one more thing.
I was going to read a poem
up
at the end as well. So.
I don't know if MT Goddess is still here, but had put out a request for the Book Mage poem in song form.
Oh, right. Yeah.
I don't know if you're up for that, Keith. You can just read it as a poem if you want to do that. That feels like a good way to wrap this up. If you are willing to try this in song form. If Empty Goddess is not here, apparently Empty Goddess is here.
All right, just get your clips out. I'm gonna sing this. It's gonna be awful. I don't even know the right tone for the song, but Mage comes, can scale sky high, hat ball, mage book, a reading rainbow. I can't play anything else. Familiars to know and weavers to grow, a reading rainbow. You don't need anything except a book, so take a look. A reading rainbow. There.
Hey,
never
Keith,
let it be said I did not do it for the people.
Keith, listen, you know what this is, what's coming. I don't know if you're actually looking at my camera to see me right now. I'm going to golf clap for you. Listen, it takes some courage to be able to do that. I respect it. I truly enjoyed it. I think it's going to be a fan favorite for sure.
It's beautiful.
All right.
Beautiful.
Well, I appreciate the request from MTG Goddess or MT Goddess because I would not have done that otherwise. So well played, and thank you for the kind words.
Yes, definitely. Thank you for requesting that. We needed that.
Yeah. What better way to end a great stream? Thanks again for joining us. Or Steve, any final words from you? Thank you, everybody, also for spending your time and your day with us.
All I got is thanks. Like Yuck said, everybody coming out, talking to us, talking to Keith. Love to see a whole bunch of cool familiar faces, and definitely always excited to meet some new faces. And on that front, please join us in the Cover to Cover Discord so that you can keep updated on our upcoming events. We got something special brewing for the end of the month after the monthly qualifier, so more to come on that. You'll want to be in the Discord. You'll want to be checking out streams, hanging out, talking to Yuck and Keith and I. And Yuck, any final words you'd like to say?
No, that's it. I'm honored to be able to be here with both of you today. I look forward to our next Cover to Cover episode. If you're in the Cover to Cover Discord, we'll announce that in there to keep you updated. We have some fun stuff coming up for sure. We haven't released any of that in detail, but just stay tuned. We got some fun stuff coming in the near future.
Thanks, everybody.
Goodbye for now.